Welcome to class 9. Today we'll be starting with the first lesson of your biology syllabus. In your NCERT textbook, this is your chapter 5, fundamental unit of life. We'll be covering a few things about cell which you might have already studied in your class 8 syllabus and elaborate or study in detail some new things. So the first thing that you need to know, and you might even remember from your previous class, is that the cell was first seen by Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke was seeing the cork which is obtained from the bark of a tree. He was using a very simple self-designed microscope for seeing this cork slices. What he saw was very small little room-like structures which he found them to be similar to the prison cells. जेल में जो छोटे छोटे कमरे बने होते हैं उसको उनको ऐसा लगा कि ये वैसे दिख रहे हैं. उन्हीं कमरों की तरह उसमें वॉल्स थी और अंदर बिल्कुल वो खाली थे. So he called them cells. Now later on it was known that these cells were dead, so they were empty. Bark of a tree is made up of dead cells, so it is empty. Living cells have a lot of material, many structures inside. So, but by then the term cell was so much in use that we retained the use of cell. हमने उसको नया नाम नहीं दिया, हम सेल ही नाम यूज करते रह गए. Now the living cells were first seen by Leeuwenhoek. He was another scientist who had made a simple microscope on his own, and he was seeing pond water, and there he saw small cell-like structures, but these cells were different in two ways. One, they were filled with fluid, and second, they were moving. So he called them animalcules. Animal because they were moving, and molecules because they were very small. So he called them animal plus molecule, animalcules. Who discovered cell? The answer would be yes, Robert Hooke. Who discovered living cells? The answer would be Leeuwenhoek. Now we'll be doing two activities to see the cell. One for plant cell and one for animal cell. Plant cell will be using onion peel, and for animal cells we'll be using cheek cells. But you will not be doing this activity on your own. We'll be discussing this, and I might even be able to show that activity to you in our next video. The contributions of few scientists which led to a better understanding of cells. The first two scientists that we'll be doing would be Schleiden and Schwann. Now these two scientists separately gave the cell theory. Cell theory means why cells are important, why cell is so significant, the study of cell or the understanding of cell is so significant for us. So Schleiden gave the cell theory for plant cells, Schwann gave the cell theory for animal cells. Now we combine these two because now we know plants and animals both are living organisms, both are made up of cells. So we combine the two theories and we call them just cell theory, given by Schleiden and Schwann. Now these two scientists were important for giving the two postulates of cell theory. The third postulate was given by another scientist known as Rudolf Virchow. We'll be doing the cell theory in detail later on. Nucleus, you know, is an important part of cell, was discovered by Robert Brown. The protoplasm was discovered by another scientist known as Dujardin, and the term protoplasm was given by Purkinje. The cell membrane again was discovered by Robert Hooke. We come back to cell theory. There are 3 points in the cell theory. You can see them on your screen. These 3 points are known as postulates. The 3 postulates of cell theory are: the first one, cell is the smallest independent unit of life. Independent means a cell is capable of survival on its own. It shows all the characteristics that you know are characteristic of life. It can move, it can grow, it requires nutrition, it can excrete, it can reproduce, and it shows a response to stimuli. All these characteristics you've been doing from smaller classes. These are the characteristic of living organism, on the basis of which you can differentiate living and non-living. The second postulate of cell theory is all living organisms are made up of cells. So no matter which living organism you talk about, the smallest unit would be cell. The third point, which was given later on by Rudolf Virchow, cells arise from other cells by division, which means if you are given the ingredient, the various structures present in cell or the various molecules present in cell, you cannot create the cell de novo. De novo means in a new way. A new cell cannot be created by mixing all the ingredients together. A cell has to arise from a pre-existing cell after division. Now the one exception of cell theory is virus. Virus does not have cell. It is said to be acellular. Virus cannot also be called as living because it acts as a living organism only when it is inside a host. When it is outside, it is non-living. So virus is connecting link between living and non-living, and it is called as acellular. We have organisms which are unicellular. You've already studied about these in your microorganisms lesson last year. So unicellular organisms, the entire body is made up of single cell, and this single cell is capable of performing all the functions of a living organism, and it is also able to survive on its own. So unicellular organism is a clear-cut example or proof of cell theory. I've shown you two living organisms, amoeba and paramecium. Why is the cell called the structural and functional unit of life? We have already discussed this. So this is your assignment. Using the following two terms, cell organelles and division of labor, you answer this question. Why is cell called the structural and functional unit of life? If you are not able to answer, then you can continue watching the video and then try to answer this question at the end of the lesson. There are organisms which are multicellular, that is, in which more than one cell together forms one organism body. Now these are grouped into three classes: fungi, plants and animals. Here many cells form groups. These groups of cells are known as tissues. Now it is not necessary that all the cells would be identical, but what is important is all the cells together perform a particular function. So you have studied about xylem, phloem, you have studied about parenchyma. All these we'll be covering later on. See, so these groups of cells are known as tissues. Groups of tissues together form an organ, and these organs together form an organism. So multicellular organism essentially have more than one cell. In your book, there are given multiple diagrams showing that an organism, a cell may have different shape. The shape of the cell will depend upon where it is found and what function it is performing. Now, one of the first cells that we'll be doing unicellular organism is amoeba. You've already studied amoeba has no definite shape. It can change its shape. So it protrudes out pseudopodia. With the help of pseudopodia, it moves, it takes in its food, and therefore it has no particular shape. Then we have smooth muscle cells, which are spindle shaped. Blood cells are round. Eggs, you know, are oval or round. Bone cells will be star shaped. Nerve cells have to carry signal like a wire, so they are long. Fat cells again are round, and sperm cells are with a head and a detail. Already given in your book, you can see this diagram, identify the shapes that we have already discussed, and then try to draw this diagram, try to identify which diagram is which type of cells. So both ways you should be able to answer. If the diagram is given to you, you should be able to identify the cell, or if the name of the cell is given to you, you should be able to draw its diagram.